Hey gang, it's Friday, 14th of May 2021, and this is part 97 of Mark talking about his things and experiences. And today I'm going to be talking about U2's 2015 tour, the Innocence and Experience tour, which opened 6 years ago today on the 14th of May 2015 in Vancouver. Really strange to think that that was 6 years ago, because to me that feels like it was about last year, maybe the year before. And obviously when you're younger, time passes far more slowly than when you're older, and I think part of that might be down to just the accumulated percentage proportion of your life that a day or a week or a month kind of ties into. So when I was a kid and I had 6 weeks off in the summer holidays, especially in the days before the internet, there was like nothing to do for over a month, and no money, of course. And that felt like a lifetime. Whereas now 6 weeks can go quite quickly indeed. And that's probably because at that point, that 6 weeks, sometimes it was 1% of my whole life. Whereas now 6 weeks would be, something like maybe a tenth or a 20th of a percent of my whole life instead, actually. It's all pretty weird. Now, today, going to be talking about U2's 2015 Innocence and Experience tour, what I regard to be probably my favourite period of touring for the band, the best show which I saw, or the best shows which I've seen. In terms of shows themselves, and also I think in terms of just the experiences that went with it. This is the tour program, which has a mirrored cover on it, and I think the mirrored cover is actually the whole tour is really kind of strong in imagery and narrative. And the tour started off in Vancouver in 2015. It finished in Paris in December 2015, as released on this Blu-ray here. And I'm going to talk through the tour, my experiences of it, the shows that I got to, and how I think everything kind of all flows together. So first and foremost, I think it's probably the best U2 show that I've seen, better even than Pop Mart, which is, given how highly I rate Pop Mart, I didn't think anything could get better than Pop Mart. And the Innocence and Experience tour was an indoor tour, and I think it was the first all-indoor tour since about early 1992. Because parts of Elevation, I think there are 4 outdoor shows for Elevation, for example, which otherwise was indoor. And the other tours all had an outdoor or a stadium part of it since 1992. So this was the first time that there was an opportunity to see, no matter which show you saw, to see U2 indoors in a place with a roof. And even though those places with roofs were still pretty big, 20,000 people, they were, by U2 standards, quite intimate, and they were made more intimate by the fact that the stage design was pretty unique, actually. The stage design was such that, in fact, the arena was divided into 2. There was a single kind of long, thin stage that went out into and covered probably 3/4 or 90% of the length of the arena. Give you an idea of what that stage looked like. There's a photo from the tour program. This section here is actually part of the stage all the way through up to the E stage, which is here. And so no matter where you were, even at the furthest point away from the band, you were still twice as near as you were if they were just playing on a strip of land at the far wall of the arena. And sometimes if you see U2 in a football stadium, you're a quarter of a mile away from them in some places. Whereas here, I had seated tickets for, I think, all but one of the shows, maybe all but 2 or 3 of the shows actually that I saw. I saw 10 shows in 2015, and I think some people just didn't quite get it. I go, why did you go and see U2 10 times? And the kind of approach that I took around that was very much around that. It was like going to see Star Wars at the cinema, and it only played a certain number of times, and then it would disappear forever. And so if you want to go and see it, you have to see it while you have the opportunity. And I wanted to get a lifetime's worth of experiences seeing that tour and that show. I went to 10 shows. Other people went to 70 shows. I think there were 76 shows on the tour, but I went to 10 shows on the European leg, 9 tour stops and 1 TV appearance. And as far as I was concerned, I sucked every inch of experience out of that tour. I saw it from multiple angles. I saw it from the top of the venue. I saw it from the seating section down at the bottom. I saw it in the standing section. I saw it right up next to the stage. And I saw it right at the back. So I got to see it from all the angles. And there's too much going on in that tour to be able to see all of it in one go. And it's also the most tightly packed narrative construction that the band had. So at this point, the band are putting together their set lists with songs chosen by how the lyrics of the songs relate to each other. And so it was dense in imagery, dense in wordplay, dense in callbacks and references. So if you're paying attention to it, your intellect is fully engaged throughout all of it. It's not just 4 blokes at the end of a basketball arena playing big hits, and here come all the big ones right at the end, and here's the new ones that you have to put up with. It was structured like a narrative to explore the band's birth, innocence, childhood, maturity, and then concluding with a kind of a resolution. And then I'm going to go up to Sue's corner now and talk through, I think, the structure of the show. And so to give you an idea of how that worked, the 9 shows I saw 2 in Turin, the first European shows of the tour. I saw 4 in London out of the 6. I saw 2 in Glasgow, and I saw 1 of the Dublin shows. And every one of those shows opened with The Miracle of Joey Ramone. And The Miracle of Joey Ramone, as you probably know from the album here, is a love letter to the Ramones itself. The lyric is around, I woke up at the moment that the miracle occurred, and I heard some music that made sense of the world. And that is like the key lyric throughout the rest of the show, is that the band opened with The Miracle of Joey Ramone so that they could very clearly point out, or if you're the kind of person that reads the lyrics, is that listening to music, experiencing music as teenagers in Dublin was the moment that changed their lives. It was the moment where a world that previously hadn't had sense and order kind of made sense. And it was the first time since Rattle and Hum in 1988, with which we should never speak, that the band really admitted their huge fandom and go, look, the Ramones changed our lives, And this was shown all the way through the show. So the first 4 songs of the show are built around going back to the band's roots, playing early songs or songs that reference the band's early years. The Miracle itself being a love letter to the Ramones. The second song on every show was a song from one of the first few albums. So it was normally either Out of Control or Gloria or The Electric Company, or very occasionally Two Hearts Beat as well. All songs from the first 3 albums, rough, spiky songs. And it kind of drew a line between going, the Ramones changed our lives, the second song, and this is the type of songs that we wrote as a result after hearing it. The third song on the tour was Vertigo. And Vertigo is a song about revelation. It's a song around temptation, but also it's got great big whacking boxes of crunchy riffs, and kind of going, well, look, this is the kind of songs that we're making of now. There's a section in the song in Vertigo when it was performed live, when Bono would sing, all of this could be yours, just give us what I want and nobody gets hurt, and he would put his arms around a light bulb like this that would then switch itself on, and he would then swing it around as the guitar chords kind of kicked off, and the light ascended to heaven. And the imagery of the light bulb is something that was very, very important and used frequently all the way through the tour, and actually the Experience tour in 2018. And it ties into the lyric in Ultraviolet, where he sings, your love was like a light bulb that hung over my head, baby, 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 light my way. The light bulb is the imagery which reflects itself in the idea, someone says quite literally, the light bulb went off over my head. And the band played these songs with the idea that music gave them ideas, gave them a way of making sense of the world that previously hadn't made any sense to them, and they used that as a way of kind of illuminating it. So the first 3 songs were played with very little in the way of staging, very little in the way of video, just 4 guys at the end of the thing, almost playing like a kind of like loud, brash songs with very little staging. And then the light bulb came down, and that was the moment when the rest of the the presentation of the tour, became and revealed itself. The fourth song on the tour was always I Will Follow, which is a song of Bono's love letter, effectively, to his mother after she has died, saying, if you walk away, I will follow. And as I've mentioned before, Martin Amis has a theory about premature death awareness syndrome, which is that some great artists are absolutely compelled to create and to take risks because they've seen mortality from a very young age. And I Will Follow is that song that kind of brought that mortality into it. Now, the fifth song in the set is Iris. And Iris, I think, a really, really important song. I've mentioned it in the previous episode. But Iris, as an object, is both a name, the name of Bono's mother, but also obviously the name of the aperture in the eye, which the light gets in. So it's like going, well, drawing a comparison between his mother and the way in which he saw the world. And it was a point of entry, a point of revelation. And obviously seeing Bono sing a song to his mother whilst there was the only existing film footage of his mother playing on the video screen behind him. Kind of like an imagery that was also used in the song Lemon, and singing around, Iris says that she will be the death of me, I will be the death of her, but it was not me. And to kind of go, and then at the end, that kind of refrain of free yourself to be yourself, if only you could see yourself. So what I was doing there is he's very clearly going, these are songs about innocence, these are about the streets where we form, this is about Cedarwood Road. Everyone's got somewhere like Cedarwood Road. I have Northfield Road. Other people will have, Bearclaw Avenue or somewhere like that, I don't know, or maybe Diagon Alley, who cares? But then Cedarwood Road, the sixth song in the set, is going, let's go and walk down our childhood streets, let's go and visit the world where we grew up, because all of us were children, all of us were, innocent when we dream, all of us had our childhood formative experience, all of us had something where we knew, I'm not a child anymore, or a place that necessarily we might romanticize. And so Cedarwood Road had the Bono kind of on a walkway above the crowd. Here he is inside the transparent walkway, which had video presented onto it. There's the imagery of Cedarwood Road, and then you've got other imagery of Worms and Jesus and boots and cars and things like that. And in this scene, he kind of is pointing to David Bowie whilst David Bowie makes a TV appearance. I think he's performing Starman in 1973, and there's a section where Bowie's singing, and he kind of makes a reference to you, and he points to the camera and goes like that. And whenever Bono performed this, he kind of pointed to David Bowie backwards, making a connection and going, Bowie was one of the people that changed how he saw the world, in the way that he changed the way in which lots of us saw the world. Now, the song after that was called Song for Someone. Now, I've sung about, or not sung about it, I've talked about Song for Someone previously. And I think it's a song about falling in love for the first time and losing your virginity. And Bono always used to introduce it with a video of his son, Elijah, in an animated form, playing guitar in his childhood bedroom. And on the posters that we had in the childhood bedroom in that particular kind of thing were posters of Kraftwerk and The Clash. Now in Iris, Bono sings about it was you that made me the man machine, and that's the cover to Kraftwerk's Man Machine album there. And I made a point of wearing a Man Machine t-shirt a couple of times when I saw them on this tour. And so what Bono is very, very clearly doing here is singing about these songs of innocence, which obviously ties itself into the album itself. And it's for the first time being able to look back at your life as an adult and going, well, now I need to understand how it all made sense. How did my childhood make sense, and looking for a song that made sense of the world. Now, we also had a lot of imagery that was on the screens. The song that was after this was Sunday Bloody Sunday, which had a lot of stylized imagery of Dublin and car bombs. And the song after that was Raised by Wolves, which is a song around the bombings in Ireland in 1974, and I was reminded of this the other day, actually, is that we just came up very, very recently, about 2 weeks ago, to the 22nd anniversary of the Admiral Duncan pub bombings in London, and a nail bomb that was placed there with the aim of murdering gay people in one of the most popular lively and fun gay pubs that there was in the country. And when the Admiral Duncan bombing went off, I wasn't there. Although I went to London very, very frequently, and it was, a last-minute change of plans to go to a slightly different pub, which meant that I wasn't in the Admiral Duncan when the nail bomb went off. And for the song "Raised by Wolves," when Bono's singing about the bombings in Ireland, it was because he made the choice of travelling, I think, by bus instead of by bike, that he wasn't on the particular road where the bomb went off at the time that the bomb went off that he was thinking about. It's sometimes very, very small decisions can really completely change the concept and shape and direction of your life, such as, I didn't go down that road because I wanted to drink in a different pub, or my friend fancied somewhere that didn't play music, or any one of 1,000 reasons behind this. It always reminds me of Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, when he's dripping the water on the hand, and sometimes it goes one way and sometimes it goes the other way, and he goes, there's no reason behind it. That's just the way it is. Now the show was divided into two halves, almost an Innocence half and an Experience half, and the Innocence half came to a close with Until the End of the World from the Achtung Baby album. And Until the End of the World was kind of put at this point in the set as being a song around, a change, a rebirth, an explosion of what had happened previously. And the last section of the song, the screen kind of rotated, or the imagery rotated, and all the images that you'd seen in the previous half of the show, cars, wolves, houses, boots, waves, all of them kind of combined together to create this tidal wave as the light bulb which hung on the screen exploded, and kind of saying all those ideas that you had were destroyed and reborn in something new as a result of this bombing or this terrorist act that completely shattered your childhood life and reforged you as a young adult. And at the same point, Bono was ripping pages out of a Bible or pages out of, I think, Milton's Paradise Lost as well, and the whole thing is just kind of like, there's a lot of work to unpack there. It's like watching a musical theatre piece, but played live by a rock group, and I hadn't seen anything quite like it to that extent since Pet Shop Boys' Performance Show in 1991. It's a really dense way of understanding their childhood, and we've all got childhood stories to talk about. So the second half of the show kind of tied itself into, normally it was, sometimes in early shows it was a performance of Ramones' Beat on the Brat that played over the PA, and then sometimes it was the Wanderer, the Johnny Cash song, and then towards the end of the tour it kind of settled down into a remix of The Fly. Whilst drapes came down, they covered the screen, they created almost a second Berlin Wall that was covered in graffiti, and then the band came out after the performance of The Fly, which was performed live, The Fly, in Glasgow and Paris. Bono sung the vocals. In the other performances, it was a pre-taped performance whilst the band changed into new outfits and had a drink or whatever. And the next song after that was Invisible. I spent 8 minutes talking about how important Invisible is to me in a previous episode about this, but the song it works in many ways, and to some people it's around reclaiming your own identity after a traumatic set of events. You don't see me, but you will. I'm not invisible. The next time that you see me again, I will not be my father's son. All that is deep in there. But for me, that song was around actually reclaiming your identity after the traumatic events, whatever those were. And I think we've all had traumatic events when we were younger. Effectively going, I'm not the person that you thought I was. I'm someone, completely different. I've made the decision to recast myself in my own identity. Whilst the band kind of broke through the screens and the visuals in there, they then did even better than The Real Thing, the first song off Achtung Baby, apart from Until the End of the World, which kind of indicated that actually what they'd done is they'd chosen to be better than what they really were. They'd recast themselves as something new, and then they went and played Mysterious Ways, and they had a second rotating section here where they normally change between two songs. One was normally quite up and quite big, so that would have been something like Elevation, Desire, New Year's Day, Party Girl. And then the second song was perhaps a little bit more mellow, and it was something like Ordinary Love, Sweetest Thing, Angel of Harlem, All I Want Is You, maybe Volcano, something a little bit more mellow, before moving on to, I think, the last song off the Innocence album that they played at most of the shows, which was Every Breaking Wave. And Every Breaking Wave is an absolutely classic U2 song about failure and addiction and compulsion, and the fact that every gambler knows that to lose is what they're really there for, and every siren sings to the shipwrecked shore, and all of that, and it's just one of those songs where you just kind of go, guy's singing his bloody heart out. And it's just a really wonderful song that I think should be played more often. In the European leg, now we saw the first show in Turin, the first of the European shows, and they changed the show around a little here. The second half of the show, and I remember we flew into Turin the day before the show, and then we were hanging around outside the venue the night before, and they played a full dress rehearsal the night before, and we got to hear through the windows, we got to hear the new arrangement, or the new structure that they had for the second half of the show, which included October being added to the set. And October is, to me, a really, really important U2 song, because it's the first U2 song where I heard they're not just geezers with guitars, there's something more to it than that. And that was covered with footage, I think, of drone footage from I think a ruined, kind of war-torn set of buildings, and you kind of realise that kingdoms rise and kingdoms fall, but we go on. Humans, we go on. We survive all these things. The thing that we as humans have to do is survive through, live through this, whatever it is that's going on around there. And then the band played Bullet the Blue Sky. And the imagery that we had in Bullet the Blue Sky, lots of waves, lots of war, lots of conflict, lots of imagery around refugees. And well, actually, no human is illegal. And the hashtag refugees welcome was kind of shown on the screen. And I also think actually Bullet the Blue Sky was a song that really needed to rest. It had been played on every tour up to the end of the Vertigo tour. And by the end of the Vertigo tour, I felt that the band were playing the song because they felt they had to, not playing the song because they needed to. And the song was lacking its bite, kind of like if you watch a band and they're just not as good anymore. The song needed to rest, and it needed to be given a new context, and it was in the 2015 tour. And then as Bullet the Blue Sky ended, and Bono sang about private planes and being in danger, and the military-industrial war complex and business and everything that went with it, and basically going, look, war's a business, it's a racket. And if you doubt that, then please watch Why We Fight, which is a film, I think, by Errol Morris around it. And also there's a film called The Fog of War, which was interviews with a guy called Robert McNamara, who was the American Secretary of Defense in the Vietnam War. And it's very, very clear that, a huge chunk of war is around generating artificial conflict in order for people to get rich. And sometimes that is what happens, it's what we see in our everyday lives, is that, there's conflict and artificial divisions between two people that are often stoked up and created so that, we don't look at perhaps some of the things that we really need to look at as a species. And I don't want to quote Culture Club's song, War is Stupid and People are Stupid, but war is stupid. It's the failure of diplomacy. And it's very, very possible for mankind as a species to be able to operate without fighting over things like fuel, water and land, if we're careful and sensible and we work together as a cooperative. Yay, my little socialist. There is enough of it to go around if we're careful about it. And we're seeing conflicts on a daily basis now, especially in Palestine, where it needs to be resolved somehow. I don't want to sound like George Bush and go, can't you just get them to stop doing that whole bombing thing and sort it out? I'm not a president, and if I was, I certainly wouldn't have been as bad as some of the ones which America has had. but it's, you know, around conflict and how that's actually counterproductive to humanity. Following that was Europa, and this was the first time that Europa had been played in Europe since 1993. It had been played as a full band in 2011 on some of the shows towards the end of the 360 tour. And the concept around, I think, is Europa, it's an imaginary nation. It doesn't exist. And the song was very clearly around Europa as an imaginary nation, a place where people can go where everything is better. And you know, I have no compass and I have no map and I have no reason to get back, and I don't know the limits of what I've got. It's a song which lent itself very, very elegantly into Where the Streets Have No Name. Where the Streets Have No Name, if you don't know what that song is and you're watching this far back, well, I'm not sure how you've managed to elude the existence of that song. But to me, in a U2 live show, Where the Streets Have No Name, it always symbolises the existence of a paradise, a heaven, a place where the streets have no name, a place where you know, everything is different and it's better, and it's you know, the venue is bathed in white light. And one of the things I always do whenever they play Where the Streets Have No Name, and I can't believe it's been 4 years since I've seen them do it, is when the lights go on, I look around the crowd and everyone is losing their goddamn minds, and it's a beautiful thing to see. It's just to see 20,000 people at that moment where they're just like, this is what I am here for, and they don't care about anything else. That's the moment that they're looking for, is the moment when that song hits like adrenaline or like drugs or something. It's paradise on earth, actually, and it's just bliss. And then that song comes to an end, and they played Pride, and they draw a line in Pride between the things that they were singing about in Bullet the Blue Skies, Europa, October, refugees, and around the fact that no human being is illegal, because as the line says, one child dead on an empty beach, one life betrayed for this. They changed the lyric, and every time I can't help but think about that awful picture of that drowned child on a beach, who drowned just trying to get somewhere safe. And yet somehow it didn't stop people from still thinking of people from other countries, or people of different colours or different sexualities, you know, people that were in any way different, as somehow being the enemy, which needed to be blamed for all the things that were imperfect in their own lives. You know, and victim blaming is a classic tactic of the abuser. That, oh, you made me do this, or I did this because of you, or you forced me to do this. It's, you know, classic gaslighting behaviour, actually. And when we started to blame refugees for the failures of society, you know, picking on the least powerful people in society and saying that somehow it's their fault, is a classic bullies tactic, because they don't want to look at the real causes of this, which are generally, you know, human imperfection and greed. Now, this sounds like I'm sitting on a soapbox. I've got a megaphone, and you should probably go, just shut up and sing the songs, Mark. But that's not my job. That's Bono's job, and he doesn't do as he's told anyway. But there's always somebody, you know, frequently I've said, well, you know, there's too much politics, and it's like when somebody goes, well, you know, Rage Against the Machine are political, and it's like, what is that all about? I mean, when you've got you know, a vocalist that does that, that's pretty much a giveaway, isn't it, that there's something political that's going on when you've got a megaphone covered in a flag. So it's the moment where you know, the show kind of climaxes, really, I think, and then you've got With or Without You, and as I've said before, the live version of With or Without You that was on Rattle and Hum, the moment where Bono starts singing about shining like stars, was the moment that, to me, I always thought, I'm in. This band, I'm in, man. That's it, you know. And I always wanted to see U2 perform Shine Like Stars. They did it very, very rarely. You know, maybe one show in 20, one show in 30. And the second night in Turin, when I saw them, and then Bono sang that extra verse about, we'll shine like stars in the winter night, and I was like, I got it. You know, I got the thing that I'd always wanted to get. The thing that I never thought I would get, because when I was 14 and I watched Rattle and Hum, and I was like, I want that moment there where when they sing Shine Like Stars. I want to experience that. That's what I want to see. And then I got it in Turin. And seeing U2 in Turin was a really, really important thing for me. And the year before the Innocence tour here, I had some really, really tough times. I went through some really, really rough stuff, and I had a major setback in terms of my career, and I dealt with some very unpleasant people. And the thing that kept me going throughout all of that stuff was, I will see U2 in Turin. So I had some really bleak, hopeless days. I had some really, really dark nights. I had some moments where I'm like, well, what is the point? Why am I here? Who am I? What do I believe in? Should I be doing this for a job? Should I be this person? Who am I? I had a classic midlife crisis, and throughout all of it, one of the things which I thought was, I will get to see this band perform in Turin if I survive this. And I had some days when, despite that I was, to quote John Grant, surrounded by my friends and family, and getting concerned glances. All of that, the thing which I held to was not, I have love and cats and children and friends, and the thing that I was like, I'm going to get to see U2 in Turin. And when I was getting up at stupid o'clock, or I was sat in meetings when really bad things were happening, and people were lying about me to my face, and I was going, I've got something you guys have never got. I've got hope. You guys are not going to get to me. You're not going to break me. You're not going to change me. I will survive. I will see U2 in Turin. And I can't overstate how important that was. It was really bloody dark at certain points, because what it felt like was that forces I couldn't influence were trying to tear my life to pieces for some kind of crime that I hadn't committed, some kind of thing which I'd done which must have offended them. And as I said in a previous episode, I'm quite opinionated about certain things, and sometimes people really, really don't like that. And maybe the thing which caused a lot of the difficulty for me was the fact that if I see somebody making a mistake, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut about it in a professional context, because I'm going to point out that there are areas of risk around that. But what I ended up doing inadvertently was putting a target on myself, and they thought that somehow if they shoot the messenger, that everything will be okay. So I was in these meetings where people were lying about me to my face, and I was just kind of going, look, you're not going to get me. You are not going to be the people that take me out of this life. You do not get that privilege. I will survive. I will endure. I will walk through miles of shit, and I will get to see U2 in Turin. So I got to see U2 in Turin, and when he sang With or Without You, I was like, that's it. That's the moment I've been waiting for the past year, pretty much. That's what I needed, was something, and to go, yes, it was worth it. All the effort, the tears, the fight, the late nights, the hard times, the mental health, the monsters that were living in my head. I knew I was going to beat them. I knew I was going to have that experience, and I got that experience when Bono sang Shine Like Stars in Turin. And that may not mean anything to anybody but me, but it meant everything for me that night. I was like, someone threw sand in my eye when that happened, and I was like, I'm living the moment that the 14-year-old me, when I watched Rattle and Hum for the first time, I was like, I want to experience that exact moment. And it took 40 years, near enough, but I got it. And it meant everything to me. With or Without You is the last song of the main set. There is an encore, which has City of Blinding Lights. It has Beautiful Day in it. And there was a cover version of Paul Simon's Mother and Child Reunion. And the fact that Mother and Child Reunion was there in the set is a reference to Iris, I Will Follow. Is that about a mother and a child being reunited and setting that tragedy at the start of the song. a child and their mother being rent apart by forces beyond their control. A mother and child reunion sat there as the penultimate song of the set, to be able to provide a sense of closure, and to say that separation, which the whole of the rest of the set had dealt with, had been restored. Come back into a beautiful day when the mother and child were reunited. And the more times I saw it, the more I realised how incredibly deft that was, and cheeky, but deft, and how it kind of closed a circle around the narrative of the show. The last song on the show was either Bad, which was played probably about 14 or 15 times. I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, which was played about 30 times, or One, which was played 36 times. So this was the first tour where One hadn't been played at every single tour stop. It probably played at about 45% of shows. And probably the highlights of the show was when they played Bad, and then it segued into 40. And there was like this enormous rising cacophony, a crescendo that lasted sometimes 17, 18 minutes of those two songs together. And again, I got to see U2 close shows with 40, which was something which I'd always wanted to see, because whenever U2 played a show in the 80s, between 1983 and 1989, they ended with 40, and one by one, each member leaving the stage as Bono got a gigantic spotlight and sprayed it over the audience whilst each of the instruments slowly faded out. And again, seeing the band perform Bad and 40, I was like, I'm watching something which, when I was 14 or 15, I dreamed of seeing. And so it was a fulfillment of some modest childhood ambitions, that tour. And it was my favourite moment of the whole tour was when they played Bad and 40 back to back together. The last time I saw that tour in Dublin at the O2 Arena, and seeing the O2 Arena, which was the building formerly known as the Point, was very, very strange, because I was on one night, I was watching U2 play Desire in the Point, which was the room that the song was recorded in, the room that the song was written in 1988. It's the room that the band played it live in the Rattle and Hum movie as a rehearsal. So I was effectively almost seeing U2 in a glamorized version of their rehearsal room. It was before the Point was the Point. It was an empty bunch of railway depots called the Point, because that's where all of the railway lines converged. And then it was converted into a venue that was called the Point, that was then converted into another venue called the I think the O3, because there's already an O2 in London. And as I said, I saw 9 shows on this tour, and I haven't shown you anything apart to look at for the past. So I probably should get the tour booklet out of the way. So the shows which I saw on the tour, there were 9 of them plus a TV appearance. The first 2 in fact, were at the Turin Pala Alpitor on the September the 4th and 5th. Which is on this bootleg CD. This bootleg CD is an audience recording, by the way, but I'm the kind of guy that's going to buy the bootleg CD of the shows which I've been at. And again, the set list which we've got on this, and the ones which I'm talking about, there are only 4 songs that change night to night. I'd like to thank my friend Mark for being the setlist geek and putting together charts which showed how setlist changed and evolved. So you could almost predict what the sets were going to be like. Night 1 it was going to be the Electric Co. Night 2 was going to be Out of Control. Night 3 might be Gloria if you're doing 3 nights. By the time you get to night 6, the second song might be 2 Hearts Beat as one. Alternate nights you'd get Elevation and an acoustic song such as Ordinary Love or The Sweetest Thing, or you'd get Desire and Angel of Harlem. And when they were playing 3, 4, 5 nights, you'd get All I Want Is You or New Year's Day. And then the last one, it was either going to be generally One or Bad. You've got one more shows than any other. But occasionally you get I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, but I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For kind of faded out towards the end of the tour. So the first 2 shows were at the Pala Alpitor in Turin. Great shows, absolutely loved them. Now the third show that I saw was TFI Friday. I got to see them play four songs in front of an audience of 200 people at the Cochrane Theatre in London, which was an invite show. Mark entered a competition and he won. which is brilliant. And I got to see U2 just as a band, stripped of all the staging, stripped of all the show, stripped of all the video and everything, just 4 guys making a racket in a room. And it was revelatory, because I knew U2 were a band, but at the same point U2 had always been a presentation, there'd always been a show. Now, I'd seen the show, the London Rooftop show in 2009. I'd seen the Top of the Pops show that they did at White City in 2004, which again was just 4 geezers on a stage, but this time it was 200 people, not 2,000 or 10,000. And what really struck me then was just, how much the band is at the core of that, and sometimes the show overshadows the strength of those 4 musicians making a noise. People kind of forget that U2 are a band of 4 dudes who like making a racket for a living. Now that they played, I think, Raised by Wolves, Vertigo, Song for Someone, and Out of Control, which is a wonderful experience, and I will post a link to it down there. You can see me during Raised by Wolves. I am the dude in the black and white striped outfit, who's singing along but not getting all the words right, because I wasn't expecting them to play Raised by Wolves. And then the next shows I saw nights 3, 4, 5 and 6 in London at the O2 Arena. I didn't see nights 1 and 2, even though that they were 2 steps away, because if I'd have bought tickets for nights 1 and 2, I would have had to give up seeing nights 1 and 2 somewhere else. And again, the standing tickets were £65 for this tour. On nights 4 and 5, I had seated tickets up in the guards, which were 30 quid, which was less than I paid in 1997 to see them, which is quite surprising. But what I did do is I got that kind of set list, that rotation of songs as they went through, and then the 6th show they ended with Bad and 40. The 3rd show, which is widely regarded as one of the better ones, is on this bootleg CD. This again is an audience recording. They played Gloria. They played New Year's Day for only the 3rd time on that tour. And they did a cover of the Ramones' I Remember You, which went into Mother and Child Reunion. And then they did Bad, and they played People Have the Power for the first time with Patti Smith on vocals. They'd never played it before. They used to open the shows with People Have the Power over the PA, but this is where they ended the show with Patti Smith singing with them People Have the Power. And they only did that twice, and the other time they did that, by the way, was on the Paris DVD. So they clearly had it in mind. And the 3rd disc on this one has extra and unusual songs from the other nights, including the TFI Friday show, which is an excellent recording. Now, the best show on the tour that I saw is this one here. This is the show at the Glasgow SSE Hydro, which I think is on the site of what used to be the SECC, Scottish Exhibition and Conference Centre. Saturday night in Glasgow. I love Glasgow. It's one of my favourite places in the universe. The Barrowlands is one of the best venues in the universe, and a Saturday night in Glasgow, it's always going to be banging, to put it nicely. This was the best show that I saw out of the 10. The Saturday night in Glasgow, they did With or Without You, with Love Will Tear Us Apart and Shine Like Stars in it. We got Bad and 40 as the last song. It just ripped the roof off. And even though we were way up in the top, and I'm like, this is better. This night is just, some nights it's just a privilege to be in the room and the band are playing an incredible show. And Glasgow was an incredible show. One of my favourites, in fact. Certainly my favourite of the tour. And then the last time that I saw the Innocence staging was at Dublin, which was meant to be the last 4 shows of the tour, with the last 4 nights in Dublin. That didn't work out, thanks to the attack at the Bataclan for the Eagles of Death Metal show, which caused U2 to reschedule the show because they couldn't perform because of the security concerns that had happened. And, pardon me, the show was released in a filmed form on the Live in Paris Blu-ray, which was broadcast on television. There's also a couple of bootleg DVDs. This one is live in Berlin, which is a multicam, and this one here, Return to Paris, which I think you can find the full show on YouTube or Vimeo, is the backup copy that was recorded the night before on the penultimate night of the tour. But this is a very, very good representation of the tour, and well worth investigating if you like the band. And I think, you know, U2 on stage are where it really, really absolutely happens. This also has People Have the Power, this time with the Eagles of Death Metal, and a song called I Love You All the Time by Eagles of Death Metal, the band that were playing on stage at the time of the Bataclan terrorist attack in Paris. There is a very, very fancy box set of this. I haven't bought it because it's over £100, and all you really get are expensive and fancy paper goods, and I don't see the point in that. If you're a member of U2's fan club, they also released this, which is the live songs of Innocence and Experience, which replicates all of the songs from the respective albums, Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, performed live over the two tours, the one in 2015 and the one in 2018. I don't think you can get this one anymore, but you can probably find it on Discogs, and it's probably really, really expensive. It's a nice little fan club gift. It gives you an idea of what the shows were like, but it's not better than the real thing. Now I'm going to wrap up here. All I'm really going to say, I've got about a minute and a half left, is I absolutely love this tour. It was my favourite tour by U2. I met lots of wonderful people, made great friendships, went to places I'd never been to, saw songs I'd never seen play live, you know, quite literally fulfilled some of my childhood ambitions when I watched Rattle and Hum as a kid in 1988 on television. And I got to make them real. I got to see U2 in Dublin at the point. I got to see U2 play Shine Like Stars. I got to see U2 play Bad and end with 40. It was my favourite tour of the bands so far. But the next time I talk about U2, I will talk about what happened after that, which is the Joshua Tree tour. But I've only got about 40 seconds left, so I'm going to wrap up here, and I'm going to say thank you for listening to me talk about U2 for 46.5 minutes. As usual, don't be a dick in the comments section, stay beautiful, and I will see you all soon. Thank you, and stay beautiful. Bye.